The demographic time bomb in the UK is about to explode, and this has finally made it to the mainstream media. So I thought we'd talk about what I think might be the reasons for this happening and just go through the statistics. Most of these will be coming from the Office of National Statistics. So when people are like, "Oh, where did you find out that X amount of this is happening in Y area?" Well, from the government. This is just the official statistics that everyone uses in this country. So that's why. So anyway, let's begin with women. Because it's their fault. That's right. I'm placing the blame on women. No, I'm joking. But women are part of the problem, and men are, of course, part of the problem as well. In fact, the lack of relationships that men and women are engaging in is, in fact, one of the problems. But anyway, interestingly, women are the majority of university students now. 37% of young women will now go to university, compared to something like 30% of young men. And this is a trend that's been going up, and it doesn't seem to have any sign of slowing down. This was in 2017. There was 30,000 more women than men, and this is just carrying on. And this dovetails with the fact that marriage rates are, of course, the lowest on record. If we can go to the next one, you can see this is from 2018. Marriage rates for opposite-sex couples were the lowest on record, while the total number of marriages fell for the third consecutive year in a row. This is the latest data I've got from the ONS as well. And so this is just an overall decline, with people choosing to get married at much later ages, particularly those aged 65 and over. Imagine getting married in your 60s.
I mean, that's just sort of fun at that point, isn't it?
Well, it's just for companionship at that point, I imagine.
I suppose so.
But the point is, it's not producing children at that sort of age. And so we have arrived at the position now where we have a record number of women 30 years old who do not have children. More than half of women in England and Wales born in 1990 without a child when they turn 30 in 2020. This is the first generation to do so, according to the ONS. And at the same time, the average number of children women have by the time they reach 30 has also fallen to its lowest ever level, which is 0.96. Less than one child per woman. That's not good.
I mean, it's horrific.
Yes.
I mean, being below replacement rate is bad.
Yes, considering they need to have had 2.1 children on average for the population to just remain stable. This is a dramatic demographic collapse that we are staring at here. So among women who turned 45 last year, almost 1 in 5 were without children, a big rise compared to the 13% in their mother's generation who did not become a parent. So you can see exactly how this is happening. And you see there's the chart. If you can go down a little bit, just so you can see, that's from 1940s, where it peaked with the baby boomers, and woof, it's off a cliff. What caused that, do you think?
Cultural changes?
What year was birth control introduced, Callum?
I have no idea.
It was around the 60s.
Yeah.
So generally a bit of a decline then, buff. Just saying. Anyway, and it's you are right though, the cultural attitudes as well are a part of it. Dr. Joe Mountford, a consultant obstetrician and vice president of the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, said, "Choosing when to have children is a personal decision that should be fully respected and supported, as should the decision to have no children. No. Shame those women who do not have children, because this is going to cause us massive problems in the future. You have a duty to have children, which I will expound at length another time. But just put a pin in that. We're coming back to you have an obligation to have kids, women, right? And men. So don't think you're off the hook. Because she carries on. However, young people should bear in mind that natural fertility starts to decline from the age of 35, and later pregnancy involves an increased risk of complications, including it takes long to get pregnant, fertility problems, and high risk of miscarriage. Yeah, don't waste your time. Right? Don't sit around thinking, "Oh, I'll have kids when I'm 40. No, you won't. It's actually much more unlikely that you will. And the thing is, so we've got a bunch of highly educated, unmarried, childless women. They're breeding themselves out of existence. Well, this is literally the plot of Idiocracy.
Unbreeding, almost.
Well, yes, unbreeding themselves out of existence. This is literally the plot of Idiocracy, where literally the intelligent people are like, "Oh, well, we're going to wait," and then suddenly it's too late. And this happens all the time. We've covered it loads of different times on the podcast. And of course, the less smart people are not doing this. You know, they're having big broods. And so we've arrived at the point now where we've got almost over a third, coming on half of the population that are degree holders, and they're having fewer and fewer children, dramatically fewer. And so now we've arrived at the point where deaths have overtaken births. We are officially a declining population. And this is in the Times. This is not like some radical fringe Nazi publication or something. You know, this is, they always say,
as if birth rate and death rate is the exclusive domain of the Nazis.
Well, they always say that's an alt-right talking point. It's like, no, that's a fact, you know.
Yeah. Sorry, is GDP also an alt-right talking point?
No.
I mean, what else are you going to give them?
That's a neoliberal talking point, which
Right.
we'll get to in a minute, in fact.
Go up.
Yeah, exactly. Line go up. Precisely. That's their concern. But anyway, so as the Times put out, immigration will be the only driver of population growth from 2030 onwards.
Didn't have to be this way.
No, it didn't. According to official, it didn't have to be this way. But the thing is, right, and I hate to put all of the onus on women here, but much of it is on them. It is their choice whether they get pregnant or not now because of birth control, and they're choosing not to get pregnant. Well, you have a duty to have children as a man and a woman. But if one side is saying, "Well, I'm actually not going to have children, and I've got the ability to not have children," well, you're the one shirking that duty, frankly. But anyway, so the ONS has pointed this out. I did look it up earlier, but I didn't get the link, so I just used this. But it's something like 80,000 births and then 685,000 deaths now. So it's just like, right, okay. And so they say, well, immigration will have a greater role in supporting population growth as net migration increases by about 15,000 more than expected each year from 2025. So immigration is going to go up, our birth rates are going to go down.
I do wonder how this compares, because you mentioned the pill being the driving force there. Of course, I'm not saying we should model ourselves, but I am wondering how Saudi Arabia's native population is doing, because people always say, oh, no, it's because we're incredibly wealthy or we don't have to do this or that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But like the Saudis, of course, have lots of money.
I have no idea.
I wonder what's going on with their
access to
kids.
birth control.
What? No.
Well, then I imagine the population rate is probably at least stable.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they expect that there will be more people, 200,000 more people a year coming, which means over the next decade, net migration is predicted to add over 2 million people to the UK's population. Great. We're going to replace the people who weren't born here with people who were born elsewhere. And of course, the baby shortage will hurt the economy. Won't someone think of the GDP, says one think tank. That's the concern, is it? That's the concern. The combined gross amount of earnings of the people of the UK will go down. Oh, that's the only problem. The Social Market Foundation said the birth rate was almost half of what it was at its post-war peak, and the country's aging population could lead to economic decline. That's the only worry. I'm just worried about that economic decline. It said that ministers should set up a cross-government task force to consider the issue, and one helpful measure might be better childcare provision. Really? Women need to be in that workplace, Callum, or GDP goes down. Line going down bad. Women must be in the workplace. This is what's being said.
You know what's funny there? Implicitly, they're also saying, well, we're going to increase immigration to increase GDP.
Yes.
It's like, well, what if you just had lots of people born here? That would also increase GDP, neoliberal. So
yes, it would. But then less money would be spent on childcare, which is apparently 22% of both working parents' income.
I'm also going to mention, I don't know what it is with the neoliberals, but they're obsessed with GDP, never GDP per capita.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? GDP per capita is just not important to them. But anyway, but this is more than double the average for other Western countries. And so in their report, Baby Bust and Baby Boom, examining the liberal case for pronatalism, they said that this would ultimately lead to a shortage of working age adults. So if you're sat there going, yes, well, I'm a 40-year-old woman with 3 PhDs and I own a mansion, then I will just hire people. No, there's going to be a shortage of working age adults. You're relying on the idea that there will be people around you that you can pay to do the work. And if there simply isn't, then enjoy that.
Well, they've already told you their solution, haven't they?
Immigration, yes.
We're going to import loads of Mexicans because...
Don't get me wrong, I've already got this covered. We'll get to it. So anyway, let's talk about the aging population, because this is not good news, really. If you can go to figure 1, if you can scroll down a bit just to figure 1, so you can see the graph, so you can see just how bad this is. As you can see, it's basically a kind of like deformed pyramid, and then in 1966, then in 2016, it looks pretty bad. And by 2066, it's basically going to be an inverted pillar, where there will be hardly any children and loads of really old people, is what they're expecting, which is basically what it is now. But much worse. And the fatter the graph gets at the top, the more difficult this gets, because that's people who are very old, who need lots of care. And as you can see, it's going to be massively increased. So in 2016, there were 11.8 million UK residents, a 65% or over, which is 18% of the population. 25 years before, there were 9.1 million. And go, oh, well, science has saved them. Yes, it has. And that means if you wish to continue this scientific trend of making sure old people live longer, you need to have kids. It's just the way it's got to be. By 2066, there'll be a further 8.6 million projected, which means that 26%, over a quarter of the population, will be pensioners. That's insane. How is that going to stand? The answer is, of course, it's not. And of course, this is not people who are evenly distributed around the country. Older people make a much higher proportion of rural populations and coastal areas than urban populations.
There also will be some self-correction. I'm going to put very liberally there as well, because if you don't have the money to pay for, say, the Holy NHS to keep everyone,
Yes, indeed.
I mean, I'll be 60 at that point,
Yeah.
to keep everyone alive, well, you won't be able to live as long as your previous generations. You will die sooner than they did.
You will, and it will not be very pleasant. But anyway, does immigration fix this? And in this, they say, immigration is often assumed to offset the effects of a country's aging population, since immigrants tend to be younger working ages. However, this only presents a short-term solution, since, firstly, immigrants also age, and although immigrants... and this is one of the things that the neoliberals are just like, well, we'll just get immigrants. Yeah, but they get old too.
I love that. Douglas Murray does this debate where he listens to someone spout for like 2 minutes about this and he goes, you know, they also get old.
Yeah, but also immigrants from high fertility countries tend to have more children over time. Second generation migrants, their patterns of fertility tend to converge with those of the UK, as in they grow up in the United Kingdom. They become accustomed to the kind of culture and lifestyle we have here. They hear the doctors saying, well, I mean, having children is a choice and we should respect the choice of people who don't have children. And they go, yeah. Well, that's my choice then. And I'm just going to do exactly as everyone else does. I'm not going to follow the habits of behavior from the parent country. So even then, bringing in migrants, again, their fertility rate goes down just like ours. And of course, just so people know the amount of immigration, I mean, this is just absurd. This is from the immigration up until August 2020, which is the latest statistics that the ONS has. Over the year, 715,000 people moved to the UK intending to stay for 12 months or more. 700,000 in a year.
This is during COVID as well.
Yes. During the lockdowns. During COVID, 700,000 people moved here. Over that point, 680,000 people were born. These are the scale of the numbers that we're talking about. There was an emigration of 400,000, leaving us with a net of around 313,000, not including the illegal crossings from the migrant boats, which is what, probably another 50,000 or so by now.
Sea people.
Yeah, the sea people, yeah, exactly. Another 50,000. So there we go. And that's not including just any other illegal aliens that we're just not aware of, who are not in the numbers. But from that, 257,000 are coming from a formal study, so we can reasonably assume that a large number of the 400,000 who are leaving are students. But 458,000 are arriving for work, family, or other reasons. So people we don't have to assume are just going to leave. But anyway, so this, of course, is being facilitated by the government because they're like, oh, God, we need loads of carers for the old people in the homes. Because we don't have young people of our own to hire. And so the government is just going to start incentivizing bringing over more immigrants to care for our old people. Thousands of additional care workers are to be recruited from abroad to fill chronic gaps in the workforce, the government has announced. After figures showed more than 40,000 social care staff had left the sector in the past 6 months. This was only last month this came out, right?
There are some other aspects, of course. I think the vaccine mandates also came in effect here. But also just... Okay, you know all the money we have to spend on integration? Mm-hmm. How we just raise the wages of people having to do these jobs and spend the money on that instead?
We could do.
And then you could have your native population be willing to do the jobs.
Or we could just get, I mean, assuming we didn't ban them for not being vaccinated.
Of course.
But or we could just get a load of cheapo foreigners.
Yeah.
Which is what the government's solution is. But the thing is this a guarantee of anything? And the answer is, of course, no. During the COVID pandemic, the UK population may have shrunk by over 1 million people during the pandemic because people were just leaving. Because they're not tied to this place. There's no particular reason they have to be here other than money. And if something happens, they're just like, bye. See ya. This new report suggests that an unprecedented exodus has happened. They will just leave if something happens. They don't care about you. You were just saying, come over here and we'll pay you. Okay, but now I don't need your money. Bye. Right? But the thing is as well, is this actually a good thing for the people being cared for? Well, I went to the World Health Organization and checked what their statistics on elder care home abuse are. Do you want to know how much self-reported staff have committed abuse in the past year, according to the World Health Organization? Go to the next one, John. If you go down a bit, just to go down, there's a sort of there we table there, right? Look at that. Overall prevalence is 2 in 3 report that they have abused someone.
Sorry, the staff themselves reporting that they've abused someone.
Rates of elder abuse are high in institutions such as nursing home and long-term care facilities, with 2 in 3 staff reporting that they have committed abuse in the past year, according to the World Health Organization. That's a direct quote. But look at that, reported by older adults who are elder abuse in community settings, 15%, rather than 64%. So when caring for family members, this is a lot less rife, but when caring for people you don't know or care about, apparently it's quite high. Most of it's psychological abuse, which I guess is, thank God, it's not, 9% physical abuse. But I mean, a lot of it's neglect. Some of it's sexual abuse. Just, what the hell is this? I mean, I would never question the statistics of the World Health Organization. So who knows? But anyway, so who's providing care? Well, the government has some statistics on this too, right? So apparently, if you can go to the next one and go down to figure 3 so we can see it, 2/3 of carers are caring for their parents or a spouse. That's interesting. Figure 3, I think it is. There we go. Right, so you can see the spouse is the green, and the light blue is parents or parents-in-law, and the rest of it is children. And so you take that out as well, or grandchildren, and then you've got the sort of blue bit on the end, which is other. 80% of people are caring for someone they're related to. If you're not related to anyone who is caring for you, it's going to end up being a foreign migrant worker, who apparently you've got a 2 in 3 chance of being abused by, according to the World Health Organization. Is this the future you wanted, ladies? You didn't get married. You didn't have kids. Don't have grandkids. No one cares about you. You get to look into the dispassionate eyes of a nomadic foreign worker from somewhere else in the world as he cleans your bed sores and then psychologically abuses you. Is this the future you wanted? I mean, are we honestly just going to be like watching migrants taking over English towns and cities while the selfish, childless women just dispassionately lay there and just sunset English civilization? Is this what we're talking about? Because it seems to be what we're talking about from the statistics. Or you can get married and have kids, like you should, like your mother did, like your grandmother did, like your great-grandmother did, going back to time immemorial. These are our choices. It's not fun. I'm not even joking. I mean, look at Birmingham at the moment, right? So we're waiting currently for the next census. But if we go to the Wikipedia page, we can scroll down a bit. You can see the previous 2.
Sorry, right? I'm laughing because I just saw something in the chat. It was like cervix guarantee citizenship.
Basically, yes. If you can scroll down, there should be a graph. There we go. Right. So you can see here, when they say white British, they mean English, right? So that's the English population of Birmingham in 2001 was 65%. In 2011, it's 53%. And you can even chart the areas of Birmingham that have migrants, that have migration, and you can see it's just I should have got this other chart. I just didn't think I'd need it for this, but it's clusters, and so that was 10 years ago. 300,000 net immigrants a year over 10 years. We're looking at 3 million more immigrants, aren't we?
I mean, still got the question about where's the 2021 census. Well, that should be there because that year's done.
Well, we can go to the next link actually and see where the next census is.
Oh.
If you scroll down a little bit, you can see what their milestones are. So they've got, they accept the things in February, publish full details on the outputs of release schedule in March, and then publication of first results in late spring, whenever that is, 2022. So later this year.
And the final release of outputs in 2023. I don't even know what that means.
All data
is
released next year. But at least, because I mean, obviously this This is not going to look good, right? And don't get me wrong, I don't want to say, oh, it's just women doing this. No, it's obviously men as well, failing to be, husbands and fathers and providers and things like this. But in men's defense, the system does seem to be rather rigged against them. I mean, there's still affirmative action for women, despite them being the majority of university students, things like this. Women just not getting married. Things aren't going well. They're just going to be these lonely, childless singletons who have got amazing careers while a bunch of men are just committing suicide as our civilization dies. That's what's happening. Not good news. I'm really annoyed about it. And because you'll be told you're a bad person for just pointing out these are facts. So there we go.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast, The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to subscribe to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as this video, The Politics of V for Vendetta, in which Carl and John go through the, anarchy versus, let's say, liberal aspects of V and the whole movie. If we go to the next one, you can also follow John on Getter at John Wheatley on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.